Thank you for listening to Coach's Corner with Coach Smith. This show is presented by Heels on Franklin. If this episode hits the mark, do us a favor. Like it, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. That kind of support keeps the podcast rolling. You can find all episodes on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. So whether you like watching or listening, we've got you covered. Let's get into it.
Welcome into the latest episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Chris Smith, and today, as always, I am joined by Coach Smith, coming off a road trip to Virginia Tech. Coach, how are we doing today?
Hanging in there. It's a tough week, very tough week. But, we got to keep moving forward, and that's what we plan to do.
Yep. Well, I just wanted to mention really quick, thank you for everybody for tuning in. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to Carolina softball. Be sure, no matter what platform you're listening on, whether that be currently on Twitter or known as X or YouTube, be sure to subscribe, follow, leave a comment, tell us your thoughts about Carolina softball as they get ready for the ACC tournament. All right, well, Coach, we got a jam-packed show this week. I just want to let everybody know we're taking a different approach since there is no preview. The team has this week off. We're going to recap Virginia Tech, and then we're going to go into some of the positive things that Carolina softball has done this season on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm really excited that we're going to have Coach Corey, known as the hitting coach, has had amazing success with all the players this year. And we're going to bring him in to kind of help talk about just all the success that they've had from the batter's box this year. Coach, let's go ahead and jump in. Like you said, tough week. Not only a tough weekend, but a tough week. But talking about game one, last week, of course, we had our preview for Virginia Tech. So I've crafted some of these questions to kind of go back to some of those questions we asked last week in preparation for the matchup against Virginia Tech. But I wanted to start with, we talked about the consistency that Virginia Tech has from the offensive side of the ball all season long. In a game like this, in game one, where it comes down to the final swing, what did you see from your team's ability to compete pitch for pitch in that environment?
Well, we knew we were up for a big challenge going into Virginia Tech. And they had some rough games previously. So we knew that they were trying to get back on the right track, especially offensively. So we knew it was going to be a challenge. And, I think in game one, obviously tight game. We had the lead going into the sixth. I was really proud of how Jill came out and battled and how she looked early on in the game. I thought she did a really good job with their offense. I mean, they're a powerful offense top to bottom, and she did a great job coming in and giving us an opportunity to score first, giving us an opportunity, to kind of get our feet under us offensively. And then our offense just kept fighting the entire game. They would scrape together a couple runs and our offense would answer. And we kept doing that. And I was really proud of that. I mean, obviously the end result wasn't what we wanted in the way it happened. But definitely offense fought, which is what we wanted to see from our offense. We did that all week. Our offense really was scrappy and really worked hard to continue to punch back when we were punched. And I thought Jill had a really good game.
Yeah, a question kind of off notes from what we had prepared for today, if that's okay. Talking about Jill, the freshman, right? We talked about her in a player spotlight in the previous weeks. It seems like you've trusted her with the ball in her hands a little bit more in the circle there. I love her approach, right? When you're watching her in person or on TV, they always pan back to her because you get that fiery expression from her. And usually a lot of times you see it from pitchers when they get a strikeout or a quick put out, right? But you can definitely tell, even if it's just a fly ball to get out of the inning, she is fired up the same way. I can't wait to do a player inside the dugout, sit down with her, because I want to kind of talk to her a little bit about that, is that, how she ever thought about how hard she slaps her teammates on the back there when she's just so fired up. Because I was wondering, I was like, oh, wow, she's really pumped up. But Coach, what have you seen from her as the season has gone on that you've been able to say, I feel confident in giving her the ball, definitely on the road there at Virginia Tech against such a competitive offense?
Well, she feels confident. That's what I see. I think when you're facing teams, ranked teams that are elite level, which we have faced the last 3 weeks in a row, I want someone in the circle that wants the ball, that is confident, that is going to attack, and that is going to bounce back when things don't go according to plan. Because when you play elite teams, they're good. They're elite for a reason. And so you have to have someone that's willing to fight through that and has the confidence in themselves to be able to do that. And Jill does. At the end of the day, she's the one. I want the ball in her hands because she wants the ball. She wants the ball in any situation. If she gives up a home run, she wants the ball because she's ready to go back out there and she's ready to attack and she's ready to fight for her team. And, I think that obviously comes from this inner confidence that she has, but I also think it comes from this love for this place and this program. And, it's her dream to be out there. She's not going to waste any chance she gets when she goes out there to live her dream. And she fights for her teammates, and her teammates feed off of that. We feed off it as a coaching staff. We trust her. We know that we're going to get a competitive performance from Jill, regardless of result. We know she's going to compete. We know she's not afraid. We know she's going to attack. And she's got a bright future here.
Coach, one other question about Jill. When you were recruiting Jill out of high school, right? Like you said, it was her dream to play at Carolina, to wear that script across her chest. When you were recruiting her, did you have that in her notes or scouting report that she bowed that type of confidence?
Yeah, I mean, she's a confident person. You meet Jill and you talk to Jill, you walk away from that thinking, I mean, she's confident. She's just a confident individual, and she's got lots of tools. And what we saw in her too was that the ceiling is really high. She's not even close to reaching her full potential. We felt like she is someone that can continue to progress and develop as her career, goes on. And, she's showing that now. Who she is today is different than who she was day one. And she's going to continue to progress and develop. She's got a really, like I said, a bright future, high ceiling, and her love for this place, puts her in a different category. She's giving her all, not just for her own development, but for this place. And I think that's something special.
How often, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but I feel like this is a good conversation around Jill, because it's to me, it's such a big deal giving a freshman the ball this much as the season has gone on. But how often do you find confidence like Jill has when it comes to pitchers at such a young age?
Yeah, I think it's there, but it's not a commonplace. I think a lot of times freshmen need a little bit of time to kind of get acclimated and to get their feet under them. And I felt like she did too at the beginning of the season. So I think, for her, we've been pleased to see that confidence has grown through the season because we need her. We really have needed her these last few weeks. And I think that to us gives us thought process of how she's going to continue to progress next year. And we're going to need her to continue to do that. But coming in as a freshman in any position really is difficult. It's not easy. It takes a little bit to get, to kind of get to the swing, into the swing of things and figure things out. But, she's someone that has the confidence and the mindset to be able to do it. And I think that's what it boils down to. So many freshmen have amazing talent, but it's the mental part of it. Can they step in and be prepared to handle what's coming at them at the college level? And some are able to, and some it takes them a little bit. And we're excited that Jill's kind of come on here at the end of the year because we definitely need her.
Good. Well, let's go back to game one just a little bit more and talk about the ending there. Such a close game. You had a late lead, and then they came up with a walk-off there in unfortunate fashion. In those closing moments, what did you see execution-wise, and how do you evaluate handling of, that type of pressure on the road?
Well, I spoke a little bit about our offensive fight. I felt really good about how our offense kept answering. Virginia Tech would put up a couple runs and we would answer. The disappointing part of it is you have that lead late, and the issues that we ran into with our pitching staff, it was leadoff walks. It was, hit by pitch that cost runs. When you're late in game and you have leads against any team, but specifically an elite level team, a ranked opponent in conference, you have to make them earn everything that they get. And I felt like we handed them quite a bit. And when you hand a team like that free bases, they're going to capitalize. They have the hitters to be able to capitalize. It puts pressure on your defense. It gives them more confidence confidence and gives their offense more belief in that their ability to come back and put themselves in a position to walk off. And I felt like that's what happened in the circle. Leadoff walks killed us. Freebies killed us. That's a lack of confidence. That's a lack of aggressiveness. That's a lack of execution in the circle. And, unfortunately, that's what killed us this weekend. Offensively, we put ourselves in a position to win these games, the first game and the third game and the game against South Carolina. And just in the circle, just lacked that aggressiveness and that competitiveness that we need to be able to beat these elite level teams.
Right. Well, let's talk about game two. Last week in our preview, we talked about how Virginia Tech, such a powerful offense, and we've already alluded to it today. They had 8 hitters coming into this contest over a 300 batting average. Where did you feel like that they were able to string things together offensively and really apply pressure in game two?
Well, I think they started inning 1 in game 2. And, here's the thing. That game started and we put up 3 quick runs. We had a great game plan and we were prepared and our hitters executed the game plan. And we, put tons of pressure on them early and we had them on the ropes. And then we had a lengthy rain delay, which unfortunately I think played into their hand. I think unfortunately for us, that stopped that momentum. And we were throwing a lot of punches early in that game. And then that rain delay just ended that fight, unfortunately. They were able to make a pitching change and then their offense started inning 1 and didn't stop. They were aggressive top to bottom. They applied pressure to our defense consistently. They didn't have any let-ups offensively. And we knew we had a game 3 that we had to approach. So we had to hold some pitching behind so we could compete in game 3 to win. And it just didn't go our way. But, unfortunately, and you never make excuses. Who knows what would have happened had that rain delay not occurred, but it definitely played into their hand and helped them tremendously.
Yeah, that actually did cross my mind when the rain delay happened. I wonder how the team would come back or if that would kill momentum. But in game 2, from your side, so many times this year we've talked about, staying true to your identity, right? With that, that y'all do along the offensive side of the ball, but also on the defensive side of the ball. Where did you feel things started to drift a bit, especially in those key innings and key moments?
Well, I feel like we were really prepared for that starting pitcher and we executed. It was excellent what we did. We absolutely stuck to a game plan and executed. When they switched pitchers, I don't think we ever really made the adjustments we needed to make to be the offense that we know that we can be. I think that, and we talked about that before the third game. We just lacked adjustments offensively. Our offense is capable of continuing to apply pressure against that pitcher that they brought in. And we just weren't able to do it. We didn't get our footing. And part of that too is on the other side of the ball. Virginia Tech's offense put up a ton of runs and we had no answer for them in the circle. So that adds to extra pressure on your offense, which adds to maybe a little bit more pressing in the box and trying to do too much in the box to try to make up for that. And it just turned out to be, an unfortunate game for us to have game 2. But again, going into game 3, we were prepared to compete. And I think we did that in game 3.
Yeah. And let's talk about game 3. Another tough one that just slightly just doesn't go, your way there in game 3. But let's talk about some of the things you did like in game 3. What did you like about your team's fight, especially continuing to respond offensively throughout that game as a whole?
Well, I love the fact we scored first. After game 2 of a very disappointing performance across the board, to go out and score first. And we scored first in all 3 games, which is one of our process goals. And I was really proud of that. We came out, had 2 quick at-bats, and then Emily comes up big. And that one, it was awesome to see her do that at Virginia Tech. But again, scoring first and jumping right out and showing that we're not going to give up. After day 2 and after that showing that we weren't happy with that. We wanted to come out and be more competitive and show that we can compete to win. and boom, inning one, we have a lead. So, I was really, really proud of that. And, I think Jill also, she came out and they answered bottom of the first. But again, this is what we talked about with Jill. She didn't give up. She didn't hang her head. She didn't come off the field with a lack of confidence. She came off the field and said, yeah, they got to that pitch, but I'm ready. I'm ready to go get them again. And she did. She put up zeros for quite a while after that. And I think that says a lot about her composure and her competitiveness and her confidence. So scoring first and then her bouncing back like she did, I thought that was big. And then offensively, continuing to fight. I felt like it wasn't a great offensive performance, but we did continue to fight and put ourselves in a position to win that game. And, after that tough day on Saturday, that was really nice to see from our team that we weren't willing just to give up and give in to the last game.
Yeah, and Coach, let's talk about Emily LeGette. As I always say, I feel like we can't have a show unless we have a full question dedicated to Emily LeGette. And again, going to Virginia Tech, it was one of the not main storylines, but it was a big one coming into this weekend matchup. Her going back to her former school, of course, that you guys were able to pick her up out of the transfer portal, and it's just been an amazing showing by her this year. And she hits another home run this weekend, had multiple RBIs. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about her approach at the plate. I know we've talked about it in the past, but what makes her just so even keel, consistent, even going back to her previous home?
Well, I think we've talked about her calmness and her demeanor and how she approaches things. And that was there this weekend. And, for her too, it was easy for a weekend like that to take her out of that. And I felt like she continued to stay locked in and stay true to her approach and what she's been doing all year. I think the other thing too, her ability to make adjustments, I thought was really highlighted this weekend. I think they pitched to her in some at-bats. It was very clear they weren't pitching to her in other at-bats, or they were trying to pitch around her. And she really was able to make the adjustment from at-bat to at-bat and kind of realize sometimes hitters don't realize when they're being pitched around. They're so, over aggressive and wanting to do something. And in fact, we were pitching around some of their hitters and they fell into that trap and got themselves out. And I felt like Emily did a really good job this weekend of not falling into that, and really her ability to make adjustments from at bat to bat, I thought were big, and not letting the moment get too big. For her going back, and obviously the result wasn't what she wanted for our team, but I felt like she could have let that moment get really big and get maybe selfish and personal about it. And she didn't do that. She stayed true to herself. She stayed within herself, didn't try to do too much, and adjusted from at bat to at bat.
Yeah, Coach. And, I wanted to ask you as we close out this recap of Virginia Tech here. Of course, you have the week off before you start ACC tournament play. Lost 7 in a row against some great opponents, very close games. What's the message to the team this week? Of course, we've got some recovery days in there, but what's the message to the team? Is there any tone change, or are we still preaching the same thing going into ACC play?
Well, obviously we're preaching the same thing, right? We want to make sure that we are continuing to work on just sharpening up our game. I do think first is finals week, so we want them to make sure that they're taking care of, getting prepared for finals, and that they have the time that they need to devote to their to doing well on finals. But we're gonna work. We're gonna get back to work. We've got some small group work this week. We've got full team practice. We've got live. We want to make sure that we're getting our pitchers more live so they can work on sharpening up the things that have been weaknesses for us, especially this past week. But we have an opportunity to go to the ACC tournament and go to postseason and fight. And, what we showed this past week, and, what doesn't get seen in results, is we had 4 games against ranked teams, and we had a chance to win, a legitimate chance to win 3 of those games. Now, as frustrating as that is, we have to look at that and build on that and not get so discouraged that we feel like they were failures. All 4 of those games were failures because they weren't, and I think we have to reframe and really look at the facts of it and look at where we were and how we had these opportunities to win 3 of those 4 games, which, we talked about it earlier and our staff has talked about it. We would not have been in those games last year to be able to win those games. So we have taken a step forward. We are right there to be able to win. We just didn't finish them. So we have to talk about that and be honest about it. We put ourselves in positions to win. We didn't finish. Here's why. And this is what we need to do to sharpen those things up before ACC tournament. So we'll talk about that. I think we've got work we got to do this week. I mean, this isn't a coast week where we just, go out and roll the ball out and practice. We've got to get better this week. We've got to compete this week. So we're prepared for what's coming in the tournament.
All right, Coach. Well, we wish you nothing but the best this week as you get prepped for ACC tournament play. And instead of no preview this week, we are going to talk about the offensive success that you guys have had this year, numerous records as a program as a whole, but also numerous records for individuals. And we're going to bring in Coach Corey to slide in here beside you to join you for this segment. Coach Corey, how are we doing? Welcome to Coach's Corner.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you, so right off the bat, it's not here on the questions that we prepped, and I hope that's okay, is that so many inside the dugout interviews that I've had this year with players, they've all brought up your name when it comes to hitting. Definitely the ones when it comes to finding a player in the transfer portal, and they said that you had a conversation with them for about 45 minutes. What's that process been like for you navigating the transfer portal? And then also, what type of players are you looking for when it comes to hitting when you're scouting the transfer portal?
Yeah, no, I think that part of it is, one of the biggest things that, and this starts top down, right? So, when we talk about what we do as a staff, we are completely relationship based, right? So, it's really about getting to know these young people. And, when we talk on the phone, I mean, I could talk hitting all day with anybody, right? So it's really a chance, like, just to get to know them and let them know that, but if we're talking to somebody in the portal, we've already done our homework and kind of a deep dive into what they do. And I think part of it is just showing that, hey, this is what I've seen, and kind of here's what we do, and here's how I think that you would fit into this, and talking about what they like, what things that they feel like they are successful at, and then being able to say, I also think kind of what we do here, and one of the reasons why we've been able to have success is, I feel like we have a hitter friendly system, and in a sense that we don't put people in a box when they get here. We're not going to bring somebody in and make them hit a certain way. What we do is it's really about bringing in people that we think have talent, that we think have a higher ceiling, that we think have a lot more in the tank, and then being able to come in and let them be them, and let them be who they are as hitters, but then being able to interject and kind of pump in kind of our principles and our thoughts. So, I always tell the hitters, it's like, I'm not making you come in to be this type of hitter. Like, I want to take you as what you already do, and then I'm going to be here to support you. I'm going to be here to kind of interject little things. And so it's kind of like we're going to build this mega hitter, right? And so I think that's something that's been super important when it comes to those things, is building those relationships where, I've been really lucky to be able to have kids that want to come in here and be 2 feet in and trust me and believe in what we're doing here as a staff, and allow me to be able to give them what I believe they need, to be able to be the best that they can be. And I think you see that kind of across the board as far as like what our hitters are able to do.
Yeah, and Coach, that's so good. I think I've heard Coach Smith say it a couple of times, throughout the year, that you just have a group that loves to hit. They're ready to hit. They're eager to hit, and you can definitely see it. And so let's go ahead and dive in some of the team success records that this team has set as a whole bunch. I mean, the list is long. Shout out to Alex Funderburk, your SID, and honestly, I feel like that's just one title that he holds. He's so much more than that. I know that his team nickname is Fundy, and we've built a good relationship. He's such a good guy. He's piled in a massive thing of notes, and I was looking at him and I was like, we only have a certain amount of time. Do you want me to ask just 2 questions per thing? And we were like, he said, it's just your choice. But I did want to read every record that you guys have broken this year as a team, because I don't feel like I personally would feel that this was a great showcasing of the offense from the team perspective this year if I didn't do that. Because I can't just mention one, because so many milestones have been hit this year when it comes to hitting. Is first off, we have most runs in program history at 395 runs there. Most home runs in program history at 97. I would say that if we're granted with the opportunity to continue to play more games this year, that we could reach that 100 mark. Best batting average at 348 for the team this year. Best slugging percentage at 622. Best on base percentage at 437. Most players with 10 plus home runs. Most players with 30 plus RBIs. First pair of teammates in Emily LeGette and Shelby Barbee with 60 plus RBIs. And then of course, you have the team single game records and tied for the most for 24 there. Coach, I want to just ask you right off the bat, from not only from a coach perspective, but from just a human level, right? When you hear all those things, what comes to mind for you as a person, as an individual, not just a coach, but as a human?
Well, I mean, honestly, it makes my heart happy for these young ladies that, I mean, they give so much, and, they work so hard. They spend so much time, you talk about, we are only allotted so much time during the week that we can do things with them. Every one of those kids that are involved in any of that, and then even the ones that aren't, they're up here on their own, working and perfecting their craft, right? One of the things we talk about, I mean, hitting is an art, right? Hitting is not just getting in the batter's box and swinging the bat. And there's so much more that goes into it. And so they are up here at all hours of the night, sometimes, just working. And so the biggest thing is it really just makes me really happy for them to be able to see the fruit of their labor. They're such good kids. And once again, I go back to the fact that, they are 2 feet in, and, to be able to come in and it's really all about them having trust and communication. And that's the biggest part of it, is trust and communication. They trust me when I say, I think, why don't we try this? And then there's the communication piece of, let's talk through all of the things that you're feeling when it comes to hitting. Okay. The good, the bad, what I like this, I don't like this. This is what I feel like is happening. And I think that's a huge part of it. I'd love to sit here and tell you that I am this master strategist, silver fox of a hitting coach that knows everything there is to know about hitting. But the fact of the matter is, this is really more about them and what they do. And for me, it's me being able to put them in a position where they can go into the box in the games, feel confident, have a plan, and know what they're doing. It's kind of like trying to give them the answers to the test before they take the test, right? And I think it's just a huge credit to the kids that when you look at it, we talked about it the other day when talking about the home run thing, and it's like, y'all, do you understand how awesome? Like, I think 8 of the 9 hitters that we have, and I don't know, Fundy would be probably better in this. And also too, shout out, he's like amazing. He is everything and more that you could ever want in anybody that deals with any kind of sports information with our team. Like, he loves our team, and is so much he's so invested in such a part of it. And that is something that, it's sometimes hard to find. And we are so thankful to have him, because he does such an amazing job, and we love him so much. But I think 8 of our 9 hitters in our lineup are all at career highs in home runs, and that's including our 2-hole hitter, who is a slapper. I can't take credit for her, because my partner in crime, Kiwi James, she works with her every day, but Lexi hit an inside the park home run, was her first of her career. So we're going to count that as her being at a career high. But the rest of the hitters that we have in our lineup, with maybe the exception of one, and I'm not sure about Tarp, but I know the rest of them are all at career highs in home runs, and that's just a testament to their work and their belief in what we do. And I think what we offer, a hitter-friendly system, because, like I said, we're not trying to put them in a box. We're trying to help them be the best that they can be. And so I think what it allows kids like Emily, who, in watching her film, coming into this year, like when we looked at her in the transfer portal, we knew, she'd only had, I think, maybe 4 home runs or something, maybe 4 or 6 home runs or something like that in her career in 2 years at Tech. But knowing that, listen, like, this is what we see. And we think now, to think that she was going to do what she's done this year, it's been unbelievable. But we knew coming in that she was going to be big. We knew that she was going to be somebody that was going to explode on the scene and have an opportunity to be a complete difference maker for us. And I think sometimes, it's just that these kids having, the idea and knowing how much we believe in them, and setting that standard that this is what it's going to be, right? We're going to be a great offense, and that's it. Okay. We're going to keep things simple, but we're going to be a great offense, and we're going to push, and we're going to push, and we're going to push. And knowing that that's the expectation, they want that. They want to live up to that. And they'll fight for it. And I think that that's one of the things that's been so fun to watch this year with all of these kids.
Yeah, Coach, and I can definitely I can't attest to the late hour commitment there, spending time at the facility at late nights, like you said, but I can attest for players being there on their supposedly day off, right, on Mondays, when I come in and do some interviews and hang out with you guys for a little bit. And, this isn't hitting, but Kendall Frost, right? You guys get back from FSU, right, at 1 a.m. and I see her at 8:30 in the morning in the facility throwing by herself, right? Or seeing, Sanaa Thompson in the facility and hit in the hitting cages, right? And I think that was a day that there was probably 8 players in there, and the music was blaring, and they were all in there laughing and hitting and getting after it on their day off. And Coach, I want to talk a little bit more about, the team season records before we move on to some of the player individuals. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, this team has not only hit for power, but has done it with depth. And I know that you alluded to that a little bit, with multiple players reaching double-digit home runs and 30-plus RBIs throughout this year. What makes this lineup so difficult for opposing pitchers to navigate?
Well, I think the fact, I think one of the things that we love about what our lineup can do is we're just super dangerous all the way through. When you look at a player like Raina Blackwell, who's got 10-plus home runs or 10 home runs this year, batting out of the 8-hole, like there's no let up, right? You've got Sanaa leading off, who is a demon, right? And that kid, she hits for power, she hits for average, and if you let her get on base, she's going to find a way to score. Yesterday she scored from second on a ball back to the pitcher. Like, that's crazy. So you've got her, you've got Lexi, then Lexi is going to be the one to make things happen. She's going to put pressure on the defense. She's going to make the defense, whether it's short game, whether it's pounding the ball in the ground, like she's going to make it. And then all of a sudden, okay, now you've got Emily and then, you've got Shelby behind, right? So now you're talking about close to 40 home runs in the next 2 spots. And then we come back with Tarp, and Tarpy, she's just one of those that will find a way. Like, it's not always pretty. It's not always but she is going to find a way. And then you follow her, and you've got MC or Kiwi who are, MC has probably the most raw power of any person that I mean, she hits some balls in practice that you go, what in the world? Where did that? I mean, it's amazing. And then, Reagan, and then Raina, and then to follow that up at the end, where we've got Sydney and Reese, where, their job is to get on base and make things happen. And so it's really just one of those things that, like, the players really understand we are our best when we are literally, when we talk about passing the bat, right? It's like this train that gets started, and everybody has their job and everybody knows their role, and let's get it going. And once it gets going, it can be really fun. Like at South Carolina, you look at what South Carolina did this past. I mean, they didn't give up very many runs to a really, really, really talented Texas A&M, group of hitters, and we torched them on Wednesday, right? 14 runs with, I don't know, 16 hits, something like that. So when it goes and when we get on a roll, watch out. I just think that it's one of those things that everybody, I mean, hitting's fun, and when it's right, it's right. And we've got a group of kids who really are bought into what they're doing. They love what they're doing. They want to be there for each other. They want to play for each other. Sanaa gets on base, they want to get her home, and then to have people like Shelby step up this year, and really provide that support for Emily. It's kind of funny. We talked about Emily being Barry Bonds, but Shelby being Jeff Kent, right? Who Jeff Kent's in the Hall of Fame, right? And so, Jeff Kent made his career off of, being able to be clutch and be able to protect Barry Bonds. And that's who, of course, none of our kids made, except for Kiwi Pierce. She knew she's a Bay Area kid, so she knew who Jeff Kent was, but the rest of them, nobody knew. But, when you have that, like, it's just, it works, and it clicks. And as we've gone through the season, they've just been able to rely on each other and not have to wear it all on their shoulders, but they know that they've got somebody behind them that's going to get the job done and is going to be there for them. And I think it's just allowed them to flourish and blossom and be who they are. Yeah. Go ahead.
What was that?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that the one thing about our offensive staff and what we do is we just, like, we push that. Like,
okay. Yeah, you're talking about not knowing names like Jeff Kent, Barry Bonds. I was sitting down with Emily, and it hurt my heart because I brought up how definitely you could see her swinging that walk-off that she had earlier on this year. I mean, I know she's had a few. I can't recall which game it was, but her swing looked so pure. And my favorite hitter growing up was Ken Griffey Jr. And I brought that up to her. She did not know who he was.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. This is how old we are, right? Like, how do they not know who Ken Griffey Jr.? How do they not know who some of these people are? But yeah, we're old, and yeah.
I at least feel like Sanaa Thompson should know who Ken Griffey is. If she doesn't, that we need to introduce them so she can watch some videos, because I feel like they carry themselves in the same way with so much aurora and swag as Ken Griffey played with. And anyway, don't want to go off so much tangent on those names, but man, I even brought that up to her dad, Emily's dad, and he was like, you know what? Somebody else just texted me that the other night when they were watching her on TV and said her swing looks just like Ken Griffey Jr.'s. So, talking about Emily, let's go ahead and talk about her as it relates to individual, season records and rankings. I'm just going to go ahead and, just like I did with the other ones, I'm going to list these off. I mean, because there's just so many, and I don't feel like it would be doing it justice if I didn't. Most home runs in program history at 26. Best slugging percentage at 1.121, most sac flies at 9, most total bases 148, second most RBIs at 74, second best batting average at 470, second best on base percentage at 571, tied for second in most walks at 43, tied for most home runs in single game, which was 3 versus Virginia, and then tied for most total bases in a single game, which was 12 versus Virginia. And I did also want to mention, Alex slid me a message there, and he did say everyone has had a career high in our lineup this year. But talking about Emily, Coach, when you look at Emily, what she has done this season, and it has just been amazing, like you've already alluded to, setting the program record for home runs and leading in many, many categories like slugging and total bases. What has stood out so much about her approach at the plate?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, it's really, and Coach kind of alluded to it, how like her approach. She's so cool. It's like she doesn't let the moment get to her. I think that when we her and I kind of had a conversation, one of the very first conversations we actually ever had was, I told her I felt like what we do here was made for her swing. The way that we approach things was made for the way that she swings the bat. My core values when it comes to hitting pretty much aligned perfectly with her approach at the plate. And I told her that in one of our very first talks, that I thought she had the ability to do things here that nobody has ever done. Just because knowing how much power she has, not just pull power, but, opposite field power and everything else. And we have a hitter's park, and I felt like that like sky was going to be the limit for her. But I think, to her credit, the thing that she has been able to do is to maintain, like, when you get pitched she is pitched 1 of 1, right? You can look and you can say, okay, well, somebody might be pitching our righties one way. They might be pitching our lefties one way. Every team comes in that we play has a game plan specifically for Emily. Like, it's not any other way that anybody else on our team is pitched. And I think for her to be able to stay and stick within her plan of what she's looking to do, the biggest thing is she rarely hits pitches that aren't pitches that she wants to hit. And I think that is so hard to do, because especially when you're being pitched differently and you're being pitched a certain way, they're trying to get you to swing at something you don't want to swing at. Mm-hmm. And the number of times that she's kind of been pitched, she's being pitched around to where they're going to nibble and nibble and nibble. And if they walk her, they walk her. Like, for her to be as calm and for her to be able to be as locked in and zoned in on what she wants to hit, to not chase and not get herself out, is just really pretty amazing. So I think the biggest thing with Emily, to me, is just the way that she has been able to just stay so cool in the box and let her God-given talent take over. And she hits the pitches that she wants to hit. And if you throw her something that she wants to hit, it's going. It's just going. It wouldn't matter where we were playing. She's going to hit the ball, and she's going to hit it 1,000 miles. And, even balls that I saw her, one of her first hits earlier this year was a line drive that she hit off the right field fence that she got thrown out at second base because she hit it so hard. It's just something that's it's super awesome to be a part of. And, I'm just so happy for her.
Yeah, amazing human being. I was able to sit down with her earlier on this year, and she was just a joy to talk to for our Inside the Dugout interview. If any of you guys are listening and you missed that, you can go catch that on YouTube and Spotify. But I was also sitting down with Lily Parrish after she threw her no-hitter one game, and she said in practice, I'm so scared when Emily gets up and we're in live action, because I'm basically just shaking in my boots. That's what she had said. And going back to that walk-off earlier that she had this year, I can't remember what game it was, but it was at night. And she, you were talking about she's going to hit the pitch that she wants, and she battled that whole at bat. and I can't remember how many she fouled off on purpose. Because a lot of people don't know the game that well, and that's okay. But hitters will foul off on purpose, and here's Alex again, threw me a message. UVA 11 pitch at bat. And she just keeps fouling off to get that pitch that she wants. And not only is she able to wear down the pitcher in those moments to where they do have that slip up, right? So she gets that pitch that she wants. And so we're just so thankful that y'all were able to pluck her out of the transfer portal and bring her to Carolina, because not only has she been an amazing person on the field, but just an amazing person off the field here in the Carolina community. Let's talk about Sanaa Thompson. I've been in the program here for a while, but she's set records in her own self this year, and it's just been so good to see. So here's some of her outbreaks that she's had this year. Most runs in program history at 71, second most hits at 81, third best batting average at 460, fifth best on base percentage at 520, seventh most total bases at 132, ninth best slugging percentage at 750, and most runs score in a single game, which was 4. And she did that 3 different times. Coach, when we're talking about Sanaa Thompson, when you look at her as a player and what she's been able to do this season, setting the program record for runs scored and hitting at 460, what has stood out about her consistency and ability to set the tone at the top of the lineup?
Yeah, I think, when you talk about Sanaa, you can't say enough good things about her. I mean, and not just as a player, but as a human. She is one of the most pleasant people to be around. She's fun. She's funny. She's such a hard worker. She is a student of the game. And, the thing about her is we asked her to, really a much different role this year, coming into the season, kind of moving her to the leadoff spot. That wasn't something that we necessarily projected in the fall. We thought Sanaa maybe being in the 3-hole or, somewhere like that. But then as everything kind of started playing out, the one thing that she has done this year, and once again, a student of the game. So, as the leadoff hitter, she takes that part very, very serious. She is a leadoff. Her job is to get on base. And so it's a very unselfish, approach that she has, in a sense of she's learned how to take more pitches to walk. She's learned how to hit pitchers' pitches to where she may just shoot it the other way for a base hit, and not trying to hit every ball out of the park, because she has the ability to hit every ball out of the park. But it's now an approach where, base hit up the middle means just as much. And then if you mess up and you leave the ball in a spot where she's going to hit it far, she's going to hit it far. But I think it's just her maturation as a hitter to where she came in as this super freakish, raw athlete that was just an amazing talent. And she has worked tirelessly and spent many, many hours, developing herself into this great hitter. And that's where she is now. She's not just this, you see the plays that she makes in the outfield and all of the things that she does running the bases, that are just things that you don't coach. And so, but with that, she has taken the time and she has studied and she has learned and she has, really matured into this great hitter. And, the scary part for everybody else is she's still got a lot more in the tank. Where she's at this year, I think has just given her the confidence to know that she can be one of the best in the country. And I truly believe that. The kid's a game changer, in every sense of the word. And, to be able to have her here where she is such a good teammate, and she works so hard and she cares so much about being a Tar Heel. She loves being a Tar Heel. And I think that that's something that's so it's just so special to be around and so special to watch.
Love it. Love it. Let's talk about Shelby Barbee, which I just recently sat down with. Her interview, went live last night. I had an awesome time sitting down with her and talking softball. And I hope it's okay I say this. She reminds me also, y'all two remind me a lot of each other. Just seem like y'all both just love life so much, so easy to be around, right? Just so easy to be around. Every time I come in the facility, if you're there, I know that you're going to get up out of your chair. You're going to come out of your office or invite me into your office. You're going to dap me up, probably talk Red Sox with me for a little bit, as myself being a Red Sox fan. As we know, we both have a lot to talk about right now with that. And I talked to Shelby about that a little bit, about, y'all's both love for life, but in her own way has set many records this year. The one that we talked about, kind of laughed about some is, which not so much joy comes with it sometimes because pain comes with it as well, is, most hits by a pitch this year at 18, tied for second in most sac flies at 6, fifth most RBIs at 61, fifth best slugging percentage at 792, ninth best on base percentage at 480. Coach, when we talk about Shelby Barbee, she's been one of your most consistent run producers this season, driving in over 60 runs and posting a strong slugging percentage consistently throughout the year. What has stood out for you about her approach in those RBI situations?
Well, I think when you talk about Shelby, I think it starts last year, right? Shelby came in and had such high hopes and everything, and her season did not start the way that either of us thought it would go. And she slumped mightily for about the first half of the year. And so I think what you need to know about Shelby is the fact that through all of that, and, her and I mean, we would watch film, and it was tough because she wanted to do so good and it just wasn't happening. And then about 3/4 of the way through the year, things kind of started to click, and she really started to kind of get into a rhythm and get into a groove. She hits the walk-off here against State, goes into, the regionals, has a couple big hits, and the region is literally 6 inches away from tying the game up against Miami of Ohio with a home run in the regionals. And so she really just kind of took that momentum and really rode it into this year. And, when you talk about this year, what Shelby's been able to do, it's really, one, she's so unselfish, right? The hit by pitch thing. Okay. Like, to me, that's one of the most unselfish things you can do as a hitter, because one, it hurts when you get hit by pitches, but it's also in my mind, that's Shelby telling whoever's batting behind her, here's what I'm willing to do, for you to be able to hit with somebody on base, right? I'm willing to give up my body so that you can go hit with somebody on base. So I think that part of it right there kind of tells you all you need to know about who Shelby is as a person and as a teammate. And so then for what she's been able to do on the field this year is just really understanding, kind of, and buying into and being all in on what it takes to be able to be a good hitter, and keeping things simple. I think that, coming in last year, she'd been given a lot of different things and then learning a new system and everything else. And I feel like this year, very comfortable with where she's at. I feel like her and I have had a really, really good player-coach relationship, in a sense of her being able to communicate with me and just honestly, just sticking together through the things that weren't great last year to be able to celebrate the things that are good this year. And her approach coming into this year was, I'm going to make the most out of this. And I think she has done a great job of being able to keep things simple, understanding that, listen, she's going to get to hit with a lot of people on base because of what Emily's doing. And it's not necessarily, when she gets in those run producing situations, it's not necessarily about her. It's about who's ever at third. So understanding that, hey, I don't have to hit, a 7-run home run for things to be great, right? Like, I can hit a fly ball and we can score from third, and that's great. I can get a base hit, just like, when she comes up the other night, they walk Emily. We're down by one. They walk Emily, runners at first and second, boom, base hit, first pitch off of one of the best pitchers in our conference and ties the game. That's who Shelby is, and that's what she's done. And, we would not have been able to do any of the things that we've been able to do offensively this year without her being a big time part of that system and being a big part of what we do.
Yeah, Coach. And the last player, while there's been so many, players that have had success on the hitting side of things this year, the last one I wanted to talk about is Lexi Roberts. And I have had a chance to sit down with her as well. And I can tell you, I learned a lot about slap hitting because my first time ever attending a softball game years ago, I saw this player kind of like trying to run through the box. And I was like, what in the world is happening? And I know my good friend, Jeff Blackwood, that's a part of our team here at Heels on Franklin that covers Olympic sports for us. And it's a new show we just launched. And that's our effort of trying to cover every sport at Carolina. And I know Jeff and have given him some fist bumps a couple of times. And his daughter as well this year was like, what is that player doing? Is that allowed? And I learned so much. Now I want to talk about Lexi just for a little bit. Tied for most sack bunts with 19. I want to start with this question, right? Because there's a coach that you have on your staff that specifically works with slap hitters, and Coach Kiwi, works closely with slap hitters. How have you seen that group develop this season, and what kind of impact has that had on your offense, throughout the year and overall?
Well, she's amazing. Coach Kiwi's amazing. What she does with those that group is, it's awesome to watch and to see, how that group grows. And I think we have really 4 that she works with this year. And to see how much confidence she installs in them, she has a standard, and she has an amazing way, more than anything, of just being able to communicate and relate and teach what she knows and what she was able to do, because she was an amazing player here herself, right? And so for her to be able to instill that knowledge and the things that she does, the things that she did into those players, and be able to be, once again, a sounding board, to be able to communicate that whenever they have things that they need to work through, like, she is there for them. And, in regards to Lexi, I think she has been invaluable to Lexi. I think also, too, one of the great things for Lexi is she was able to learn last year from Alex Coleman. Alex, one of the best that I've ever been around, right? And so to be able to learn from Alex and to be able to see what Alex did, and then to be able to take that and like I said, I think be able to develop a little better understanding of what she's doing and maturing as a hitter within her game, and then what Coach does with her in regards to just elevating it and bringing the best out of her all the time. Whenever Lexi's down and Lexi, maybe has a bad at bat, Coach is right there with her, and she's in it with her. And so I think that having somebody like that to be able to do the things that she can do in such a specialty type role, because it's not something that a lot of people can teach. And she is, there's nobody else I would rather have working with our slappers than Coach Kiwi. She's amazing. And she's an amazing human. She's an amazing person to work with. Her and I pretty much work hand in hand in preparing the offense every week, and she's great. And I think that, with the work that her and I have been able to do together, it just makes things so much better for all of our hitters.
Right. And I definitely want to mention this part. So much goes into slap hitting, definitely from the coach's side of things, with having to even scout the fields that they're going to be playing at. how the ball is going to bounce, because that, goes off what types of slaps you're going to be able to do. And talking with Lexi about that, I had no idea that all that went into it, but after she explained it all to me, it made sense, playing on a turf field, or even if, I think we talked about when y'all went to NC State and swept NC State. I had to slide that in there really quick. Swept NC State, that the field would at there would play a little bit different, right? And then when you travel here, that field might play a little bit softer or harder, and this slap might, be better. Last question about Lexi before we transition to our player spotlights is, she's been a key piece of the small ball game. And there's the potentiality that you have mentioned a little bit of some of this here already, especially with her ability to execute sack bunts. What has really stood out in her consistency and situational awareness in those moments? Because, a coach can only do so much, right? When the player steps in the box at the end of the day, yes, you're standing at third base, helping guide them in between pitches. But at the end of the day, it's their 2 feet, right, in those boxes, and they have to figure out how to get that bunt down, or how to get that slap down, or that hit accomplished. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I think the first thing is preparation, right? Lexi prepares, and that goes back to the work that her and Coach Kiwi do together. She is super prepared. I think that she has really developed into she knows when it's time for her to bunt. And so a lot of times it's not even me having to give her the bunt. She knows what her job is going to be in a lot of those situations. And so I think that it's just a credit to her as a hitter and as an individual to understand the situation and being able to live in the moment and being able to lean into that, because sometimes, there's pressure, because there are times where she's up and literally everybody in the park knows that she's going to bunt. You've got first base and third base in your face. You've got the pitcher trying to throw a pitch that is going to be difficult for her to bunt. And so it's easy to get consumed in those situations to where it's hard to make sure that she gets it down, but she leans into it. And I think that she sometimes, I feel like there are times where she relishes being in that situation. And she is not afraid. And that is one thing that when it comes to being great at this game, you cannot be afraid. She's going to go out there and she's going to work and she's going to do everything she can to get it done. And if she doesn't get the bunt down, then she knows that my job is still to move the runner from first to second. And she's going to do everything she can to get that runner from first to second. And I think that that's just a huge part of it. She's a competitor. She's quiet sometimes, but there's a fire there. And I think that fire burns pretty hot when it comes to her competitive nature. And I think she loves being able to be able to come up big in those situations for us. And if you look at what she's done this year, she's been as clutch as it gets in all situations when we need a big hit, when we need a base runner, when we need anything. And it's not, it's getting the hit, it's getting the bunt down, it's taking a walk, it's all of those things that she's been super, super, super clutch at.
Well, Coach, congratulations to you as well for just the amount of success that you've had as a hitting coach. We look forward to continuing to build a relationship with you. And I'd said early on, I can't wait to have you on the show. So thank you for even finally joining me as the season winded down. Thanks for hopping on the Coach's Corner with me.
Well, thank you for having me. Like I told you earlier, we love everything that you're doing for us. It's awesome for us to be able to promote. We have such a great group of kids, and what you're doing right here for our group is truly amazing, and we love it, and we love y'all, and thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's our honor and it's our pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Smith is back over to. Yeah, you're back. It's on to our favorite segment. Well, that was actually part of it, I think we should say, too. Player spotlight, because that was pretty awesome. Thanks for Coach Corey tapping in with us there. But let's go ahead and talk about our player spotlights here. We got Bryten Burns. Tell me a little bit about her, what she brings to the team as a competitor, but also off the field.
Well, Bryten is such an amazing kid. First and foremost, she's from Texas. She actually played for one of my former players when I was the head coach at Kansas. So I got to know a little bit about Bryten before even coaching her from my former player. And she told me that I would love coaching Bryten, that she's just a great person. She's coachable. She's a team player. And all of those things are true. She has a fun personality. She's one of, I say, like, she's not a jokester at all, but she has this dry humor that she cracks me up. And she's always ready to do whatever the team needs for her to do. And I think that that's something that I really admire in her. Last season as a freshman was more of a pinch runner. This year, her role has progressed, and now she's coming in right field and being a defensive replacement for us, and really doing a good job in right field, playing solid defense in critical moments, and then getting some at bats too. But her mentality is she's ready to do whatever to help her team, and she takes it seriously. She takes her role seriously. She wants to come in and be the best she can whenever she's given the opportunity. So we're lucky to have someone like her, very selfless, is willing to do whatever it takes. Smart, loves being a Tar Heel, loves the experience here. She has a great family. Her mom and dad, and her sister lives nearby too, but her mom and dad are super supportive of us. And, I say it a lot, but it's easy to see why she's such a good kid, because her parents are amazing. And we're lucky to have someone like Bryten, just a total team player.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit there about Bryten. Let's go ahead and talk about Nicole Knox.
Yeah, Nicole, freshman from New Jersey. She is super, super athletic, super athletic. She's one of the hardest workers, very disciplined, very much attention to detail, and is always working hard no matter what. She doesn't take a rep off. And I think that's one thing that I love about her, is that she's going to, be locked in with every single rep she's taking on defense or offensively. She, as a freshman, she's, had a lot of learning moments. She started some games, she's come in some games. She's, been a pinch runner some games. So she's had a lot of opportunities to learn and grow. And I think, the one thing about her is that she's, all in those growth moments. And, I think the thing for her and how she's really learning the game and growing is the mental side of things. I think that's one thing that she's really locking in on is figuring out how to grow that part of her game too. But she's a fun kid. She's athletic, like I said, really hard worker, willing to do anything and whatever it takes, always doing extra. You guys talked about the extra work that our players do. She's one of those that's always in there doing extra work. So yeah, just a freshman too. So got a lot of games ahead of her to play, and we're excited to see what she can do in the future.
Well, great, Coach. Thanks for sharing with us a little bit about there for the Players Spotlight. Big show. Thanks for hanging with me a little bit longer. It was good to have Coach Corey. I think you did a pretty good job. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I'm super lucky. He's one of the best in the country. And, I was smart when I decided to fall in love with him, because now he's stuck here at Carolina. He's not leaving. We're going to have a record-breaking offense every single season, and I'm really proud of him and proud of what he's been able to do with our players. And it's fun to watch. It's fun. A lot of people ask, is it hard to work with your spouse? But not when your spouse is Corey. He's fun, and it's fun to be around him. And again, I probably don't tell him enough, but I'm really proud of him and what he's been able to do with our offense.
Well, I was out in public one time, and someone was talking to me about our work that we've been doing with UNC softball this year. And you were out presenting somewhere or giving a talk somewhere, and you said, well, there's one less stress I have to worry about every offseason, and that's losing my hitting coach to a different staff.
That's right. He's not leaving. He can't leave. And people know that. And I think, for him, I think sometimes – that's an ego boost, right? When schools come after you. And if he wasn't married to me, every school would come after him. So he doesn't get that yearly ego boost. So I guess I'll have to infuse some of that in every year. But no, I'm lucky that isn't a stress that I'm going to have to worry about. Our offense is going to be well taken care of as long as we're both here, for sure.
Well, from a Red Sox fan to a Red Sox fan that I know that he is, he's not going to get that ego boost that you're talking about right now. So maybe with what's going on with the Red Sox, maybe he might need that ego boost a little bit sooner than later from you.
Yeah, I know. I have to hear about it every day. I question every time we watch a Red Sox game, like, why you sound like you hate the Red Sox. I mean, every time I hear him or when he's watching a game, it's as if he hates them. But, he explains to me, and so does Cooper, my son, who's a big Red Sox fan. That's a part of it. You got to hate him a little bit when you're that much of a fan. So yeah, no ego boost for a Red Sox fan, but maybe it's coming, that we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't make things easier when he knows he's going to go to the office the next day and hear about it from Alex. So.
Oh, always. There's a text chain and Alex and him go at it, which is fun. That's fun to witness. I like to egg it on a little bit too. I like to egg Alex along too. I know a few hot buttons I can press to get him going. So that's a fun part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Alex didn't text me back the other day. Maybe it was because it was mid-game, and I sent him I have the update from the MLB app synced to my phone or something like that. I don't remember which one it is, but it gives me the update for right on my home screen. And I shot him a screenshot because it was, Yankees, which we got swept. But I was like, time to lock in. And I guess he was locked in to Carolina softball in the midst because he didn't text me back. But
I know for sure he was locked into Carolina softball. I mean, Corey said it. It is such an awesome thing as a head coach to have someone like Alex with your program. Not many softball programs have someone that is, one, that knowledgeable and talented, and two, works as hard as he does because he cares so much about our players. It's amazing. And, we run our program's a family. When you hear us talk about Coach Kiwi, and you hear us talk about even now you're a part of the family. I mean, our program is a family, and Alex is a critical piece of our family. And we're so lucky to have him. So lucky to have him.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready to go. We're getting ready to go to the movies together. Me and Lyon and Alex, we're heading to the movies together. So that we're a true family.
Because it's off day. It's off day.
It is an off day. So yes, we go back to work, but we're going to take a break and go to a movie, and we're going to have Alex with us because we just love him so much.
Yeah. My last text to him last night was at 10:22. So
yeah,
he's always on. So anyway, yeah, we appreciate everybody sticking with us for a little bit longer show than usual. We had quite a bit to highlight, which was a good thing when it comes to the offensive side of the ball for Carolina softball this year. Be sure to check this out too on Spotify. If you want to go back and listen to it, you can go check it out on Spotify. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. We know that, Carolina softball has this week off as it relates to games, but they're going to be practicing and getting ready for the ACC tournament, Coach. And we wish you nothing but the best as you approach ACC tournament play. So let's go ahead and get out of here. And until next time, go Heels.
Thank you for listening to Heels on Franklin. If this episode hit the mark, do us a favor, like it, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. That kind of support keeps the podcast rolling. You can find all episodes on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. So whether you like watching or listening, we've got you covered. We will see you next time.